In this lesson, we're going to be looking at static versus non-static. So the concept of static versus non-static refers to the idea of who owns the field or method. Static means the class owns the field or method. Since there exists only a single class, there's only one static field or method in existence, regardless of how many objects of the class are made. Non-static means the object owns the field or method. So for every single object that exists, there is a field or method that exists for it. So let's look at an example here. So public class stuff. So we've got a couple things going on. So we've got two fields, private int x, private static int y equals 5. So this one is owned by the class because it's static. Only one of them exists. All right, so let's look at what's going on here in our constructor. So our constructor receives two parameters. The static field x is initialized to a. The static field y is increased by b. So if b was 3, it's going to be 5 plus equals 3, so y would be 8. So this value of y is always going to be changing. So it's always increasing by b. Then we've got a static method, change y, so it increases y by b. And then we got this method, change x, which is non-static, changes the value of x. So let's look at this constructor. So this constructor, this is the constructor, and it's the only place where you can directly access the static and non-static fields at the same time. Now, note, the static field cannot be initialized in the constructor. That's really important here, as it is initialized when the first object of the class is constructed. Thus, every additional object that is constructed doesn't reset the value of the static field. So again, you cannot initialize your static field in the constructor. The first object of the class that is constructed initializes it, but again, it's not in the constructor. So let's look at this method. This method here is static, thus it can affect static fields. This method cannot affect x because this method is owned by the class and was not called by the object. So to call it, notice we use the name of the class, stuff.changeY. But again, here, this is really key. I cannot affect x because no object owns this method. Now change x here. Change x, this is non-static, thus we can use x because it's owned by the object that called the method. So an object owns this method because an object called it. So I can directly call y because it's owned by the class, which the object is, but it's best not to. So I can affect y. So I could do something like this, plus equals a in here, but it's not advisable. So I create an object stuff s, and so I call s.changex. I call it from the object. Calling static inside non-static. I can do that. So here in changex, I can modify it. And this is doable. So this is doable, but it can lead to confusion. So I can increase y by 5. Instead, you should clarify that y is static by saying stuff.y. So it's much more clear what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to change the static field y. Now, inside my static method, I can't affect x. We already stated that. But if I change it where I receive an object, I can now affect x because I'm saying This X is owned by S, so I can affect it there. I can make changes to it there. And that is the end of this lesson.